Good morning, wherever you are. We have representatives from Italy and Germany, so I imagine it's later there. Anyway, thank you, all of you, for joining together for Dharma practice. And before I forget, I wanted to kind of make a correction, not exactly, but last time I think I mentioned this story with ancestor Yaoshan, who didn't let his monastics read sutras. And then one day, though, his attendant passed by his room and noticed that he was in there reading a sutra. You remember? And the attendant said, wait a minute, you don't let us read sutras. Why are you reading a sutra? And of course, very, very terse Chinese says something like, I'm shielding my eyes. And I think, let's see, yeah, can we have gallery view so I don't have to look at my overwhelming face on the screen? I think at the time, I understood that to mean I don't remember what I said. Did I say it's okay that I'm reading the sutra because I'm shielding my eyes? Is that what I said? Anybody remember? Something like that. Well, since then, I've also been thinking he means I am reading this sutra in order to shield my eyes from anything else. My body-mind is in the country of the sutra completely. So nothing else enters my sphere. So I think those are both reasonable understandings of what Yaoshan had in mind and why he was reading a sutra when he told his monastics they shouldn't do that. So when you are reading sutras, which you may do, of course, if you wish, you might consider whether you are shielding your eyes. And if so, what does that mean? And does it make a difference which sutra you're reading? Suppose you're reading the Shurangama Sutra, the heroic march scripture, which about which there is some argument, and a number of modern Buddhist scholars think that that is a Chinese creation, and there's no counterpart in India. And that point of view makes some ordinarily placid Buddhists rather angry, because they insist, no, there's an Indian original somewhere, or an Indian antecedent. Oddly, 800 years ago, Dogen and his teacher Ru Jing had similar doubts about that sutra, which is kind of surprising. All that long time ago, they were also thinking, this is not from India, this one. Don't be confused with the Shurangama Samadhi Sutra, which does have Indian roots. Okay, keep those two separate. Any questions about that?
About the sutra or about the shielding of eyes?
We are broadcasting on several fronts, evidently, this morning. So we are saturating the airwaves with my Dharma talk, for which we apologize, but I find it safer just to leave that stuff to others. So we'll see what happens. But I think if some of you are Instagrammers, you can see us there too, somehow. I think it was maybe not this morning, but yesterday morning. I was having one of my 3 a.m. encounters with existential dread. And I was thinking about the Bodhisattva vows. I don't have much decoration in the walls of my room, the abbot's room, but there is two banners, very nice Chinese calligraphy that a young woman, a Korean woman and student of Dharma, wrote out the Bodhisattva vows for me and sent them to me. And for a while, I think she was considering that maybe I would be her teacher. But I'm not quite sure what she had in mind, but I think I wasn't, I didn't fit the pattern that she was familiar with in Korea. So she finally gave up, but not before she wrote this beautiful calligraphy. And it was fairly dark in my room, but I'm quite familiar with this calligraphy, it having been there for quite a few years now. So I was reflecting on the Bodhisattva vow, and I felt, I ventured into dangerous and unhelpful territory as I started to think, have I been responsible for even a single sentient being exiting samsara? And I could not in confidence answer that, yes, I have. So I say that this is dangerous territory because it's not a numbers game, as I'm sure you all understand. And it would have been good to just avoid that temptation, to go down that road. And finally, I decided, well, you really can't tell. It's possible that one day you said good morning to someone, and something about that exchange, saying good morning to each other, became a seed, and the seed sprouted into great awakening maybe long after. And that's not something to take credit for exactly, but it is something to rejoice in. So at least it's easy for me at 3 o'clock in the morning to have gloomy reflections like, man, if I'm going to save all beings, I better get going here. And then I was thinking of Dogen's heir, of his Dharma descendants, Gyun Zenji, who he took a bunch of Dogen's essays from Shobogenzo and wrote a little verse for each. And this is a well-known work that I think is maybe fairly soon going to appear in English translation, thanks to Steve Hein, who's one of the preeminent Dogen scholars nowadays. Anyway, so there's Gyun commenting on Dogen, and then there's this other fellow, Honko, who was commenting on Gyun. And the section, or the Gyun's comments on Dogen's fairly challenging essay, Sho Akumakusa, which some of you have read, I think. Refrain from all evil. That's a toughie, and quite beautiful, but quite challenging. Anyway, so Gyun wrote a little poem, and then Honko had a reaction to Gyun's poem. And just, I think, was it 3 or 4 characters? He said, I think it's 4 characters, but anyway, it comes out. This one character is the same character in the title of the Xin Xin Ning, which some of you are familiar with, the treatise on trust or faith or belief. Usually it's translated mind. But so Honko used that character, and so he wrote trust or faith or belief, and then the character for heart, and then 2 characters that say not to. So faith, trust, belief, and heart are not two. And I reflected on that for a little while, and then I fell back to sleep. So the abyss of 3 a.m. can be bridged by all kinds of things. Maybe some of you know that abyss, the 3 a.m. abyss. We're a funny species. You could also translate it, if you want, like trust and mind are not two. But I like heart myself. Since that distinction in East Asia is it's a little vague and depends on context. And when you're reading Dogen, which I'm sure you do sometimes, then too you might consider, am I shielding my eyes? Am I using Dogen's Dharma wisdom to shield my eyes from the attacks of Mara? Or am I shielding my eyes from the blinding glare of Dogen's Dharma? It's pretty bright, you know. So I also reminded myself that one of Dogen's essays, which doesn't appear in all of the collections, you know, there's several different collections of his essays in the Treasury of the True Dharma Eye collection. There's several versions of that, but anyway, one of them is the Bodhisattva's 4 ways of guiding beings. You know that one? And Dogen takes his inspiration from, I think, some old Indian texts. Do you know the four methods of guidance, so-called? They were another helpful 3 a.m. reflection. Since I thought, well, you know, I have to remember it's not a numbers game. And anyway, here are 4 approaches to the salvation of all beings, which Bodhisattvas use. One is dana, or generosity. And to be generous in our help and assistance and care for the many beings. Generosity, of course, can take many, many different forms. So this is the principle behind all those different forms. It's the open hand. And the next one is, so yeah, these all have Sanskrit names. The next one is Priyavadya, or Priyavadyata. Priya means like sweet or gentle or pleasant, and Vadya means to be said. So usually it's translated as gentle speech. So this means that the Bodhisattva generally avoids addressing beings in a way that is harsh or frightening or, abusive. Bearing in mind that there might be some circumstance where there could be the appearance that a bodhisattva is not using gentle speech for the sake of those particular circumstances. But generally, the bodhisattva addresses beings in a way that acknowledges our tenderness as sentient beings. So avoiding harshness, certainly avoiding insult, and so forth. To speak gently, to present the Dharma gently. And then there is Arthacharya. Artha has numbers of meanings, but in this context, usually means something like purpose or goal or something like that. And charya means activity. So these are the activities that the Bodhisattva engages in order to help beings. So this is activity. So the labors of the Bodhisattva are not merely theoretical. But the Bodhisattva will undertake to do what is helpful. And sometimes that might be like joining in activities that the sentient beings are already engaged in. And other times, maybe bringing something else to the mix. It's a little different for the Buddhas. The Buddhas, as any good Vajrayanist will tell you, the Buddhas are constantly engaged in the process of maturing beings by virtue of what is sometimes called emanations. So wherever the Buddhas are, I don't know where they are, but wherever they are, emanations are constantly coming forth to mature beings, which is really great. And I don't know, maybe the Bodhisattvas can do some of that, but they also have to get in there and get into the mud and the weeds with sentient beings and do stuff. And then there's one more, which is this one's a little funny. It's Samana Artata. So Samana, which means same. And Artha is the same as the previous one, a goal or project or undertaking or activity. And then Ta just means ness. So the condition or situation of same goal or same activity. And this often has a funny translation of identity action. which I always found a little odd. It's like, what does that mean? Identity action. But anyway, I don't know. I'm just, force feeding you here my own ideas about stuff. And by the way, don't despair. We do have more guest speakers coming. It's just that there's been a kind of a gap for now. But it is very important for the Bodhisattva not to make of him or her or themselves a kind of in a superior category. That is, the Bodhisattva, their understanding of their own activity and responsibility is something like, I am going to kind of bend down into the mess here and help these suffering slobs who are down here. It's like, no, don't do that. No. You or we or they are on the same level. And the Bodhisattva activity is always heart to heart, not from on high down. So then the activity of the Bodhisattva to save all beings is not, somehow outside of them and working on them. Instead, it's shoulder to shoulder and heart to heart. Which is why the Bodhisattva can crop up anywhere, under any circumstances. And there are lots of funny stories about Bodhisattvas in brothels and Bodhisattvas in butcher shops and so on and so forth. Not only in Zen, but of course in the Mahasiddha tradition of India, the Tantrika masters and mistresses who show up in very strange guises sometimes. I don't really remember any of the stories, although there are many of them. There are, 84 Mahasiddhas. They all have cute stories about weird shit that they did to help beings. One guy lived under a cart for some reason. I can't remember why, but stuff like that. If the beings need us to live under a cart, we'll live under a cart, by God. So this is samanatata, shoulder to shoulder, heart to heart. And in so doing, we create the Dharma world in which beings can mature and enter awakening. Black helicopters. Excuse us just a minute here. Oh, I guess they're not landing here this time. Okay. So in bringing to life these four principles of Bodhisattva activity, we are creating the Dharma world in which the three jewels have their amazing, ungraspable activity. And thinking about this, I ran across a quote from a 20th century Greek Orthodox saint. One kind of a cool thing about Christianity that has its full vitality is they can crank out saints from time to time. So this fellow, this was a guy, who's known as Father Porphyrios. He was Greek Orthodox. And there are a number of miracles associated with him. Stuff like, I went to visit Mount Athos, and I was having a lot of trouble in my life, and I was just wandering the hills there, and I ran into this old monk, and he was very cheerful and friendly, and he gave me the most fantastic advice, and it was just what I needed. And he was, I think he was telling this to some folks on the ship going back from Mount Athos, and somebody said, "Was it this guy?" He held up a picture. He said, "Yeah, who's that?" "Well, that's Father Porphyrios. He's been dead 50 years. It's like, miracle. One of the things that Father Porphyrios said was something like, we must take refuge in the uncreated church in order to be saved. How's that for an enigmatic little remark? If you're familiar with Orthodox, Greek and Russian Orthodox Christianity, it's hard to understand what is the uncreated church, because man, are they into the stuff, clothes and the decorations and the ceremonies, and it's quite beautiful, really, but uncreated church. So I think he was saying, our work does not involve our getting caught up in all that stuff. The uncreated church is the one we bring forth moment after moment, day after day. And in Greek Orthodox theology, there's even some, as you may know, there is some hints of rebirth in there, which is kind of cool. But we need to take refuge in the church that is not created yet, and is now being created, and is now being created. That is the place of salvation. And that is where the Bodhisattva's 4 methods of guidance really come to life. The uncreated temple, if you like. The one that we have to bring to life over and over again. Which I would suggest is what we're doing now. So I thank you all for joining in this mysterious effort. My nearly 70-year-old hip joints are complaining, so maybe now I will ask for questions or comments. Anybody have any 3 a.m. thoughts they want to share? I don't know, 2 a.m. thoughts? It's always 3 a.m. somewhere, right? Oh, Ron-san.
Yes. I've seen several YouTube videos saying that people who wake up between 3 a.m.
Wait a second. Wait. Is that this thing? Oh, no. Sorry. I hit the wrong button. You know what channel we should be on?
No.
Sorry.
A question might come through the
Jazz TV.
laptop over there.
Can you hear anybody, Cheryl-san?
Can anybody unmute and say something? Ron, can we
Can you hear me now?
Here.
No.
I thought I was hitting the volume button. Oh, well, the volume was up anyway. Wait a sec. Ah, hang on.
And tell already?
Here we are, hang on. Is it HDMI cable? Is that it?
Yeah, I believe so.
There it is. They're back. But I
Okay.
don't know why.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Yay.
Please, forge ahead.
I've seen several videos on YouTube about people waking up between 3 and 4 a.m. and it's supposed to indicate a higher spiritual awareness,
Oh, hallelujah.
which may not be a comfort when you feel like you're in a void or an abyss. Sometimes that occasionally happens and I will actually meditate for a while.
Very good.
Good way to fill that void.
Yeah. There's been also a fair amount of discussion about how our ancestors would like they'd go to bed like at sunset, and then they wake up around midnight and make love and eat something and then go back to sleep, and that this was just standard for centuries, and it isn't any longer. And some people think, well, it ought to be. I don't know about the make love part, but you wake up at midnight or something and
Night watch.
Huh?
Night watch.
Night watch.
Just watching nights.
Oh, watch the night. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Now you get up for a little while, have a cup of tea or something, or go downstairs and pat the cat and then go back to bed. So I inadvertently, I do that. I didn't intend to develop that pattern, but it seems to be. I can wake up after anywhere from like an hour, hour and a half, 2 or 3 hours, and then contemplate the universe and then go back to sleep after a while. That seems to be okay. So if that's something that's asserting itself, maybe we shouldn't worry about that.
Thank you.
Brother Frank is very, very dark. So maybe sunset is happening there in Italy. Oh, he's gonna turn on a light, perhaps. Ah, there we are. Ciao, Gianfrancesco. Any other questions or comments? Today is 24th. This April. Oh, so next Saturday is May Day. Yeah. So I think we may have a guest speaker. I'm not sure. Maybe not. But if so, I don't know. Just try to keep the ball rolling here. One thing we haven't done, partly because of the awkwardness of the public health circumstances, we haven't been doing our way-seeking mind thing, and we could be. And I mentioned this a number of times, but it's like no one has really come forward and said, I would like to do that, because some of you have done that. And I think I don't know if we recorded some of them, but some of them were very dramatic. And others were like Suzuki Roshi described while he was still alive over there at Zen Center, the then abbot of Eiheiji died. And Suzuki Roshi said, I knew this gentleman, and he was, he was a fine Dharma practitioner. And it was interesting because his life was very uneventful. He said his life was like a perfectly round marble rolling across a perfectly smooth floor. Well, that's interesting. So that sort of way-seeking mind talk is also fine. If your life is like a perfectly smooth marble, please, you can share that too. Okay, well, whatever. We'll see what happens next week. And in the meantime, please take care of yourselves. Are there any announcements that need to be made? Taro-san, is there anything? No? Okay.
Not that I can think of.
Okay, well, please take care of yourselves and one another and any animals you happen to have contact with, because it's been slow to dawn on a certain stripe of Christian who actually have absorbed the story that animals, basically all creatures who aren't human are there for our amusement and exploitation. And that is total nonsense. The creatures of this earth and the earth itself are in our care. So, yes?
Yes, and in 2015, the encyclical, the Laudato Si,
Yes.
Pope Francis said exactly that.
Yes. The current Pope, who seems to have a lot on the ball, wrote this quite lovely encyclical, Laudato Si. Laudato Si, which means he is praised. Can't remember what exactly that refers to. But anyway, it's a long read, but it's quite inspiring. So you can find that online if you want. Okay, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you again real soon.